guys? My name's Alex. That's Eileen. And you guys are watching Straight to Chicane podcast. And today we're going to be talking mostly about the Brazilian GP.
Mostly.
Honestly, it's the end of a triple header. It's coming to the end of the season. I'm ready for a little break.
I was like, are you conflicted?
I'm conflicted on a lot of things.
I'm sad to see Formula One go, but I feel like emotionally I need a break. Especially after this weekend.
Yeah, this weekend, I've seen a few people online saying they enjoyed the weekend, said it was a great weekend, very energetic. I had some people comment to me saying they were on the edge of their seats for certain people. Me, I was a little bored. I thought the best action came at the end of the race.
Well, it did. I think it was the Perez and Alonso show for many laps. I mean, obviously it was a nail biter to the end.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was still a lot that came out of the weekend. I mean, it was the last sprint race of the year.
Yep.
So just I think that we had like the upside down world with the wild weather on, qualifying Friday. It was like all of a sudden a tornado came through.
Yeah,
blew the roof off.
Q3 of qualifying, literally everybody was out first.
Crazy.
And not even everyone that came out right out of Q3 was able to get a lap in before the rain did hit. It was, it came in quick and fast in that last little bit. Whirlwind of a weekend. Red flags, sprint weekend. So honestly, talking about sprint weekend, I'm kind of curious on what your thoughts are now that it's all over with for the season. We've had 3 seasons now of sprint weekends, and they've kind of varied every single year. And now that we had this year with 6, and we had this specific qualifying for them, are you happy? What would you like to change? I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit briefly before, but
we have, yeah.
I'm just, now that's all over, let's see what your thoughts are.
How
was it? Did you enjoy it?
I think I think the sprint races are very, similar to the way the rest of the season has gone this year. So, we saw Max win pretty much all of them. Well, he won, over 50% of them. We had Checo win 1, the first one. We had Ascari obviously win in Qatar. So, it's true, fitting. We had 2 other race winners, I guess you could say, this year, one being another Red Bull.
Yeah.
But I do agree. I think there's been a lot of conversation around changing the format. But also, just what they can do each day, how they can change it. Do we go back to having traditional qualifying on Saturday, which I saw kind of circulating around. But I think it's exciting. I think a lot of the drivers, the majority of them do enjoy it. I think we enjoy it because we get another mini race, which I know the big thing is it they're just giving us a preview and there's no excitement for the race?
That's been talked about. You've heard Max say that. You've heard some other drivers say that. It's just a preview of what's to come. And honestly, this season in particular, it's kind of been that way.
It has, yeah. The more sprint races I think we saw, the more it was in line.
Yeah.
And then it's challenging because of the whole you can't change your car and you only get the one, Friday practice session.
Yeah.
Which I think most of the drivers said that that's the one piece of the sprint weekend that they actually enjoy.
Well, all the veterans, they enjoy the little bit of time in the car.
Right.
And it's
so Logan Sargent was the only one that said
I'm sure
that.
any of the other, maybe not rookies,
maybe Piastri?
but like Piastri or even second-year guys, you know what I mean, that are still, could use more time in the car. Because usually when you're younger and you're definitely or a rookie, you want as much time in the car as you can get.
Right.
And I'm torn because I do like the extra race and I do like the fact that they kind of come in blind, and if you don't get it set up right, you could have an off weekend, kind of like, I guess, what Mercedes did this weekend.
Yeah, well.
But...
well, it was also what Red Bull did last year, too, because it's, obviously this was Mercedes' win last year, but Max was open. They got the setup wrong on Friday, and they went into the weekend on the back foot. Now they have the pace, so it was a little bit of a different story to Mercedes, but I think Mercedes got it all wrong this weekend.
Okay.
So, but I mean, I like the sprint race. I think it's great that with the sport, it's ever changing, and I think that they're very open to feedback. They've changed the format every single year, which is kind of great. The first year, obviously, only the top 3 got points. Now it's the top 8. I don't know if I love the all day Saturday is just the sprint though, because it's like it feels a little chunky, like choppy.
That it's the shootout qualifying and then then it's the sprint. Yeah.
Because it's like sprint shootout and then the race. And so what they're like, I guess one of the ideas they're proposing is to have qualifying on Saturday, but also have the sprint race. And I don't know, that just feels like a lot to do in one day. But then essentially that's kind of what they're doing right now with the sprint shootout.
Yeah, I mean, so it's only one practice on Friday or still two practices?
Still only one practice.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
think it's like sprint qualifying is on Friday, then regular qualifying is on Saturday, and then the sprint race, which is kind of what we had last year.
Yeah.
There's a lot. I think reverse grid is the big popular one, so
I think
that's
an option, and I've mentioned that before for sure. Yeah, I don't know. I'm torn. I think it was good to add on, but then again, this year was kind of such a boring season for me personally because of how far Max has dominated. That I feel like they need to change it up again. They need to come back with the sprint race with some revamp for next year.
Well, they did say, Lewis said the best sprint he's ever had was Brazil 2021, which I do have to say was one of the best sprint races. But the teams were a lot closer in competition, so you're always gonna get better racing.
Yeah, I mean that era was the last car for that era. And they were all very close, especially all the top teams. Mm-hmm. You know, so I don't know. I'm kind of curious on what your guys' thoughts are, and if you guys enjoyed sprint races, if you want to see some more, what your thoughts are, and if they need to get changed.
Yeah.
But other than sprint, I'm the kind of guy that even enjoyed the hour and a half practices. So I would watch all three, even if they were an hour and a half. So I could care less if I'm watching practice or sprint stuff at the end of the day, as long as I got.
Yeah, but the drivers don't want that long.
No, I know.
And even Charles was like 3 practice sessions a weekend. It gets pretty redundant. They're running the same formatting, 3 different sessions. Yeah. So.
No, I get that. And I understand that they needed to do something that's, kind of follow with all the other leagues, because MotoGP has multiple races in sprints. Mm-hmm. F2, other American series stuff has that too. So it makes sense, and I think they'll figure that out. But honestly, what else was there to talk about? I think weather was kind of a big thing. The humidity, we watched the humidity hit like 90-something%. It was slick out there before it was even raining.
It was what Charles described as the most unusual session he's ever driven, which this is Q3, obviously, of qualifying day.
Yeah.
So Friday, it was like Q1 was sunshine and rainbows, perfect weather. Oh, it looks amazing. Everything's great. Still pretty high chance of humidity. And then all of a sudden, it was like pitch black. And Fernando even said it's nighttime, essentially. And it was all about how they got out for that final run. And I would say there was, 4 drivers that actually got a clean run in?
Probably 4 or 5, and that was about it, yeah.
And the rest of them were compromised because it was basically raining without the rain.
Yeah.
So we saw a very unusual qualifying. We obviously, not unusual for P1. But Charles was P2, and he's had 3 races out of all 3 of them has had great qualifying every single race. And then out of nowhere, Aston Martin is back in the mix.
Yeah, I don't know if they went back to their original build or something.
They did the last race.
And then what about this race? Did they just make an adjustment off the original build?
I don't think they made any changes. They went back to the original format, and Fernando basically said they tried everything. They were like, we're willing to start from the pit lane, which they did the last 2 races. And in order for us to learn a lot about the car, and apparently they learned a lot.
Yeah, car. Other than the start today for the main race, they were actually pretty quick. They were able to hold on to a lot, and Alonso in particular was able to manage out and keep a nice sneaky 3rd place win, which was, he did say he would be back on the podium.
Alonso was driver of the weekend.
Speaking of driver of the weekend, you were really heated.
I am heated. It is not a popularity contest.
But it kind of is. So
it is not.
But you can vote as many times as you want on the F1.
You can only vote once from one device.
Okay.
Now, we could have voted a million different times. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing with driver of the day is the vote has to be over by 2 laps to the end of the race or whatever. But for me, I think it's biased. I also think that it depends on what we're seeing on the TV. So the broadcast that's actually being played. And, I think this weekend we saw Lando he's gotten driver of the day 3 weeks in a row. So we were in Austin. We weren't in Mexico, obviously. We watched the race, of course, and then Lando gets it again this weekend. So for me, and I'm probably going to get hate for this, I'm like wearing a McLaren hoodie and everything. But
I know. She was saying earlier, I was like, you're wearing.
I think this weekend it should have been Fernando or it should have been Perez. I think Perez didn't have great qualifying, I get it, but still was on the podium for the sprint race. Had a good comeback in this, in this race, had a great start, was able to fight through, and he was involved in pretty much 90% of the battles that were actually happening on track.
He was.
Where people were defending against him.
Or he was passing them.
He was passing them back. Yeah. Obviously, we saw that down to the last lap where, he overtook on lap 70 and then got retaken over and then charged back with a photo finish.
Something we don't
half a tenth. So I'm like, Perez had a great weekend too, but Fernando, being in an Aston Martin that's been struggling, there was a lot of talk around it. Are they finished? Is Lawrence Stroll selling the team? Is Fernando going to Red Bull? A lot of drama going into this weekend to see him yes, he had a bad start, but based on how Mercedes performed, we know he probably would have overtaken them anyways.
Yeah.
But the second start, he had a great start, got himself into P3, and then he was just sitting pretty the whole time. And then Checo was challenging him for 20 laps, okay? So I think Fernando and a lot of the F1 community agrees that it should have been Nando over Lando. But
I agree with you. I think it's Fernando had a much better race, was able to hold off Perez for as long as you said he did, 20 laps, whatever it was. And then on the last lap, he gets overtaken, but plays it right and gets the ability to overtake back for that win in the last lap. It was an incredible last lap to watch.
Yes.
I was on the edge of my seat. I enjoyed it. I know a couple of our friends, they really enjoyed it as well.
No, it was good. It was good racing. They were it was good, clean racing. And it was exciting. It was exciting. That was the most exciting part of the race. Not that Lando didn't have a great weekend, and I don't want to discredit him for that. It's not that I'm saying he didn't deserve it or whatever, but I think he had a great race to get P2. He got P2 in the sprint race. He put it on pole in the sprint race. So...
Yeah, but he also gave up pole instantly on the sprint race too and left it all wide open for him.
I think
for Max.
With the exception of the turn one chance to potentially overtake Max, which Max then shut it down and by the next lap was 2 seconds ahead.
He's gone.
I don't know. I just don't know, why he was driver of the day today.
I think it's just the popularity contest. I think the people that are voting are young women, I'm thinking. I hate to sound wrong.
Don't stereotype it like that.
But,
I think a lot of people are rooting for Lando at the moment because he's, the driver with the most points without a win at this point.
He is.
And, he's continuing to add on to those points, and I think the potential is there. I think 1,000,000% well-deserved in Mexico driver of the day for him. He went from P17 to P5. Huge drive. Unbelievable. I think this weekend was Fernando, and I think in the U.S., I would have given it to Lewis because of Lewis's racing.
Yeah.
So we're now back to back Lando, driver of the day. We love Lando, too. I've been singing the Lando song all weekend in the house, let's go, Lando. But I think I think Fernando should have got it this weekend.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I had to talk about it early.
I got that off my chest.
I had to get it out early because I know she wanted to talk about it because it was a hot thing that it was just a hot topic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk about it earlier.
Absolutely. So what did you guys think? Who was driver of the day? I think, and we're agreed it was Fernando.
Yeah. And I think most of the people will also agree with that. Now, staying on Aston Martin, there has been a lot of gossip. There has been a lot of things them talking about possibly selling the team. But we also did see this weekend, we saw Stroll.
Stroll P5.
Well, yeah, but he also qualified
Yes, P3. So, he out-qualified Alonso, which is crazy. But, I mean, I think it's a little unusual, the qualifying that we went into. So we need to see, like I said, everyone was riding the high with Ricardo last weekend. Like, he's back, he's this. And granted, we didn't get to see him really, like, actually race it today.
Well, in the Grand Prix, if you didn't know, he got a tire hit his car, broke his wing.
We'll get into the carnage.
Yeah.
But with Aston Martin, I think, it's one race. Now, is this their potential from the beginning of the season? Because, they were fighting for podiums. Well, Alonso was.
For the first, 5 races, yeah.
Yeah, but this is the first time both drivers have been in the top 5 since Australia, which was race 3.
2 or 3, yeah.
So, maybe they're back. But there has been a lot of criticism. There's been a lot of noise around Aston Martin since summer break. But going into this weekend, it was like all hell had erupted, essentially, with gossip. Like, it was wild. Like, everyone was either getting the Red Bull seat, and everyone still essentially is getting the Red Bull seat. Perez is getting it. Alonso's getting it. He's going here. It's just, there's so much around that. And I think Alonso kind of shut it down and was basically like, I'm going to find out who said this, and I'm going to make them pay.
But then didn't he's the one that said it?
But then Helmut Marko's like, I think it was Alonso that started the rumors. Because he's saying that it was from a Spanish outlet, like news outlet, that said it. So
it's funny.
Who knows? I think after today, Alonso is, feeling good. He did make a statement, I'm behind the team. I feel good about the project. We'll see what happens. But after today, he's all in. So, but Stroll, it was good to see. He's gotten a lot of, probably the most criticism.
I feel like he's gotten a lot of criticism, and even including from me. That I
spent 30 minutes on a podcast talking about how Stroll shouldn't have his seat.
Yeah. And so I feel like he's been getting a lot of that. And honestly, coming into the weekend, they do driver press conferences, and he was one of the drivers that was in the press conference because they only do 10 out of the 20 for the conferences. And his demeanor was very shut off, very one-word answer. And he's kind of been one-word answer for a while. And it is kind of nice to see that he was up there.
Yeah. A good confidence boost.
It is a confidence boost. However, I still don't. It might be just a one-off.
It could be, yes. He's back in the top 10, so he had slipped out of the top 10, I think, 2 to 3. Yeah, so he's back in the top 10 in the driver's standings. But, yeah, now to put the press conference into context, Magnussen, his flight got canceled coming into the race, so he wasn't there. And Stroll was in the press room with Max, Lando, and Daniel.
Yeah.
So, 3 besties. And you're the odd man just sitting in the center of the... He was
the odd man, but, there's still... his demeanor was just a little odd, because previously coming into this, he's been talked about, does he deserve the seat? Even like I said, I've even said it.
Oh, I know.
Look, he put down a good performance. He was able to maintain finishing P5.
Yeah, crazy.
Right? Which is pretty impressive.
Yep.
I wouldn't have put him there. In fact, I don't think I did put him there in my standings. So
none of us did.
Yeah. So yeah. I'm eating crow, as they would say. But that's all I got for Aston Martin. I think there's a couple of things else to talk about. What we did see today, or this GP during the race, is that Sergio Perez was able to pretty much not lock out second place, but he made it pretty difficult for Lewis to get it because now he can finalize it in Vegas.
He can. If he beats Lewis in Vegas, then he solidifies it. So
yeah.
But Haas has lodged a complaint with the U.S. Grand Prix results because Sergio probably went over turn 6 track limits 25 plus times, I think they said, basically every lap. So if they win the, protest, which I don't think much has even been discussed since they lodged it on Saturday, it would drop Perez down to 10th. So there would have only been a 15-point gap going into today's race after the sprint. So, I mean, but I don't know how much is really going to come out of that.
Yeah, I don't know either.
It's 2 weeks later, but
yeah, I just think it's impressive because I heard Christian Horner say in a couple of interviews that they've had first place, they've had first and third place before with Weber and Vettel, and then last year with Sergio and Verstappen, they've never had first and second. Yeah. And so that's been that's been their goal this year, was to solidify that.
I mean, they should.
They have hands down the best car.
They are 400, in case you guys don't know, they are 400 points in the constructors ahead of Mercedes.
So they
400 points. Max has 524 plus at this point.
So they would be they're double what the next team is, pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah.
They have 784, 82. And then the next one is, no, it's 300 points. My bad. I'm sorry. Then it's 382 and 782. So it's 400. Yeah. I can't do simple math.
So 400 point
difference. It's a lot. It's too much to count.
It wasn't even the same playing field, honestly.
No.
At the end of this race, Lewis finished 10th?
8th.
8th, sorry. And he was like 64 or 63 seconds behind.
Mm-hmm. At one point, Russell was the next car to get lapped on the track when Russell was still running.
Yeah.
Do we
had an issue, though.
Do we want to get into Mercedes?
No, yeah. I mean, I guess we can talk a little bit about Mercedes. Sure. I mean, they had a tough weekend.
Are we still talking about Perez? What else?
No, I mean, Perez, that's all I really want to talk about. Perez was just like, he's pretty much solidifying that P2 spot.
Never say never.
No,
in the
I know.
words.
We still have 2 races left unless something happens. Because honestly, we'll talk about this for a second. There has been rumor of possibly no race in Abu Dhabi.
Well, there was, but the F1 shut that down real quick.
Oh, so they're definitely doing it.
We're definitely going to Abu Dhabi, so there's no concern there, which is great because actually someone I work with, her daughter is going. They're going to be on one of the yachts there at the Abu Dhabi race. I was like, can they take me with you, please?
Yeah, we'll come.
Yeah, I'll buy my ticket, maybe, if I sell my soul. But yes, we've got 2 races left. I think, unless something happens, Perez typically does well on street tracks.
Yes.
So we'll see what happens. Vegas is a new track. I mean, it's high speed, a lot of straights. If Mercedes doesn't get their shit together, which were a tractor on the straights this weekend and in the corners and pretty much everywhere on the track.
I mean, honestly, Martin Brundle was saying they got a parachute behind them. And you could see it when they were – I mean, honestly, it was tough because Russell was having to lift and coast. So it made it look worse than what it was because he was lifting earlier than the braking zone. But their cars were not fast at all. She was losing her shit literally all weekend because she's a huge fan of
I was like, as a Mercedes fan – as a Mercedes fan and as a Lewis Hamilton fan, anybody out there, I'm sure you felt the same way, but I can say going into Brazil, you always feel hopeful.
Honestly,
and they've won back-to-back. They won last year with their piece of crap, no pod, Dolphin that they had. And so the expectation going into this weekend, after the last 2 weeks, Lewis has been looking great. P2, the car's looking good. You come into this in the sprint race, their tires were degrading. Like, it was basically like 2 laps later, the tires were gone. I mean, they looked like Ferrari at the beginning of this year. Yeah. But had no pace.
Yeah, their car was tough this weekend. Mercedes struggled.
I mean, qualifying Sector 1, Sector 2, looking good, on pace, within a tenth. And Sector 3, they're like...
Their tires were completely burnt out, and they were doing yellow sectors.
And they're slowing down and looking like the worst team on the damn grid.
Yeah, and I feel like their timing for coming out during the qualifying times.
They always wanted to be last because they always want to be last to have the track ramped up. What's it going to look like?
And it wasn't that. You needed to be out first this weekend. Yeah. And they didn't time that right. I think it was just planning on that end wasn't right and everything. They weren't hitting all their cylinders. And honestly, now... We've heard it now multiple times from Lewis. He can't wait to not be in the W14 anymore. He wants to throw it in the bin as fast as possible.
Oh my God, I'm like having deja vu with Mercedes again because it's like last year at this time, we were riding a high in Brazil, so it was a different point in the series. But take the W13 and throw it in the bin. You know, I even made the stupid meme of Lewis dumping Angela off the like river walkway in Canada, and it was the W13. I remember posting it last year. And so it's like, here we are again with a dumpster car. We're going to throw it in the bin. I mean, but Ferrari's about to throw their car in the bin too. Like, everyone without a Red Bull or a McLaren, who's apparently got it right post-summer break, is throwing this car in the trash after this year.
It's just crazy because they have a Mercedes engine in
And how are they P2 in the constructors with this piece of crap?
They were consistent all year up until recently.
Like, and that's the thing, is it's like, I know the other teams are laughing every weekend when they're like complaining about how their car sucks so bad and they're this. And this was the first weekend that they literally just looked like shit. Like, straight up. Like, no pace, terrible, like terrible tire degradation. They had just everything. And every other weekend they're like, oh, the car sucks. Like, we're not good. We're not fast. And then you see the other teams like rolling their eyes because then they put it on the podium. So, I don't know. I feel very passionate about Mercedes, as I know a lot of Mercedes fans feel. But we cannot go into another year where they're like, this is our year. We're going to get it right. Yeah. So, you've had 2 years. We've got this, what most people in the Mercedes community will call a Frankenstein car, because it started the year as a zero pod concept, and they just threw some side pods on the same concept.
Yeah, and they need to move the monocoque, and they need to kind of adjust the cockpit to be longer for next year to make it a much more probably efficient car in the wind.
Yeah. So they got rid of Mike Elliott, their CTO.
So let me ask you about that. Do you think that it was kind of happened over the week, right?
It happened going into this week.
And was it foreseen? What are your take? What's your take?
I feel like they fired him. I don't know. I mean, seems like he isn't going to finish the season out. He's going into his gardening era, or like his gardening.
So he's been a part of the team for 11 years.
Yeah.
This was his first year as head of
technical
director.
CTO.
Yep. So and then he got replaced.
I think last year was his first year.
So last year, and then going into this year, and then halfway through this year, what's his name came back? James came back and took over the role.
I think they were partners together.
Sure. And so in leading up until this week, then he was parted ways friendly.
And he's going to be starting his new journey or something. They're very vague, like, thank you for your service, whatever. It just... coincidentally.
Well, he probably has a no-compete, so he probably can't work for anyone in F1.
Well, I mean, if he's going to go somewhere and, like, you know, be successful, maybe he should go to Williams with James Valls.
Sure. And
he can help develop their car, because Williams seems to be kind of on, you know, a good trajectory.
They do.
And so, you know, adding something there, and then hopefully, you know, the W11 with, you know, the direction that they're going. He was, you know, I think the last car. Well, no, he was there for the W12 too. But now that he's back, are we going to see something better for this upcoming year with him back at, you know, James at the lead?
We need to. Hopefully we do.
So, yeah. So that was the big news from Mercedes. You know, I think post this race, I don't even want to talk about them. It was terrible. You know, they were basically, Lewis needed to drag George through the race. George wasn't going to overtake him. Then, you know, George's car, because George was stuck in kind of the dirty air while Lewis just allowed the gap to open, so that his engine would have overheated too. All
right, so since you're talking about that, it's something I have never seen, as much as I've watched Lewis race, a DRS train behind Lewis, and Lewis was the cause. It's kind of like when you get, like here in the United States or here in Michigan particularly, we have the fast lane. And it's like watching the person that's way, way up there in the fast lane going the speed limit, and there's like 20 cars behind him wanting to go, you know, 10 miles an hour faster, 5 miles an hour faster, and they just can't get by. And that's what I saw in this race, and it was like I was a little gutted. I was a little hurt. That's all.
It was that at first. I mean, We've seen Alonso have a freaking whole train. We've seen
For
Albon have a whole
I've
train.
we've seen a lot of times.
Sometimes it's a good thing because that means people can't get past you. But I think it was the first stint that we saw Lewis just trying to like, let me just manage my tires. And then everyone else was trying to manage their tires, so no one was really pushing.
Yeah.
Then they're like, dude, this Mercedes is a slow, like, let's go, all aboard. And everyone overtook him. So it was like, I can't believe I'm watching a race where a Mercedes is getting passed by an AlphaTauri in the sprint, Yuki, and an Alpine. I mean, shit. 2 races ago, Alpine couldn't even finish a race without their engine blowing up.
And now they're finishing in the top 10.
And now they're overtaking both Mercedes on track by pure pace.
Yeah.
Okay, so can you tell I'm mad? Okay, got it. So 2 more races with this W14. There better be a miracle going into next year.
Yeah.
Or I know everyone's going to be feeling the same. So.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the race. I think it's time. I think we've been here for 30 minutes or so.
Isn't that what we've been doing?
I don't know. Who knows? We've been talking about everything, I feel like. So the big thing is I feel really bad for Albon. He's had some tough breaks. Mm-hmm. You know, I guess the big thing is like he keeps getting in accidents or making mistakes or going out of bounds. It's just the little things, and they kind of. We got a red flag today, and it was because an incident that was involved with Alex Albon, and his race was over before even turn 1.
Well, he had a great start.
He did.
Because he, I think, bad qualifying, ended up having his time deleted, which has been kind of his luck during qualifying.
It has been.
Had a great start, launched up, and then gets sandwiched by the Haas's and was like a pinball, like bing, bing, bing. And then the car was scary looking. Lots of debris going around, but, bummer to see, especially because Williams is like in this fight where they want to secure and keep P7 in the constructors, which is a really big deal for them.
And honestly, Alex has been the big crucial part of them having P7.
Yeah.
And
it's like Williams in practice is like, they're like the stars. Like they're always doing really, really well. And then come qualifying, it's like a completely different story.
Yeah.
So it's a bummer to see, but we are going to a track that's very suited to the Williams car with all the straight lines. So we may see some more Logan Sargent at home, race number 3 home race with some points potentially.
You're right. And I just wanted to talk about that a little bit because he's had a string of bad luck, whether it's been, DNFing because of just car being destroyed or lats being deleted or whatever. I just wanted to bring that up. And another thing I want to talk about at the start of the race, didn't even get to race today.
Oh my God, how could we not?
So I know.
How could we not?
So out on the formation lap, and it's happened. It's not the first time. This has happened before. This is not out of the blue. Now it hasn't happened with Charles Leclerc before, but he didn't bin it. I guess the hydraulics.
He lost power steering. He lost everything. So he was basically stuck going straight.
And put it right into the wall, and his race was over before truly ever even started.
I was like, listen, okay, we should have known that this was going to be one of those races where we were just like a knife in the heart after Charles was a DNS. So, and then they had to like do him so dirty on F1 TV and just play him like 9,000 times. Like it cut to him in like the forest.
Well, yeah, because
like 50 times.
Because he got the car. He was able to get the car moving again, and he got it out next to like the marshals, but off the track. So they actually were able to start the race on time without delaying the start. Because that was kind of a fear. Is like, oh shit, well his car's there.
Right.
They're going to have to delay the start, and they didn't, which was pretty nice. But he got out of the car, and he was probably getting ready to start heading back to, the paddock.
To the pits,
to meet with his team. And the race had started, and then just the carnage, and it was everything was kind of red flagged after, one lap behind a safety car.
2 laps. I think, essentially.
It was lap 1 incident, and then the safety car came out and did that lap. They came through the pit lane, and then they
red flagged it on the second lap. Yeah. So, yeah. No, I know. But they did. They cut to him a million times.
Because then he was trying to get back in the car. Like, he wanted to get the car.
Oh, my God, and then he wanted to get the car. At one point, you see this, like, there's a screenshot or a screen grab photo of him talking to a marshal, and he's like, I mean, I don't know what he said, but it's like, don't you get it? Put the car on the truck, take the truck to the pit lane, put my car in the pit. And it's like, he just wanted to get back up. It was like George Russell in 2022 in Silverstone. He's like, listen, I was doing a good thing. I was trying to, help Joe and put my car, get my car.
Yeah, so the rules are he abandoned the car. The moment he got out and walked away from the car.
Well, I'm sure he turned the engine off too.
Well, no, but the moment you walk away from the car, it's called abandoning the car. And so he was not able to start. So it was tough to see because he was going to start P2.
Yeah.
You were
I was hopeful for Charles Leclerc because he was P2. We saw what happened yesterday in the sprint, and I still have more to say about Lando Norris. But we saw, Max obviously started P2 in the sprint and had a great start. No competition at all.
None.
And just basically took the lead right away. So I'm like, Charles is going to go for it. He has nothing to lose. He doesn't care. He's a great racer. We have all said the joke about the first lap incident, yes, from when they were kids. But I thought Charles is probably going to lead. That doesn't mean he's going to win the race. But we've got some hope for some great racing. Some
great battling up front, which, we do enjoy. Because I do like seeing the top teams, battle for the lead. Because when it is good, it's good. Those are the top guys.
Right.
You don't necessarily get to see some of the battles that happen in the backfield, and those might be good too. But coverage-wise, doesn't necessarily always get out. You kind of get, this year we kind of get the second, the third, the fourth place.
Yeah, we don't even see Max. Max takes off as soon as he gets the lead. It's like, peace out. Like, everyone's in the rear view, and I'm on my way.
I'm curious to think or wonder what Red Bull's sponsors think, because a lot of the sponsorships are always based on television coverage, and you want the teams to get good coverage. You want your team, because that's how you get good sponsors. So, he has been out front all the time. They don't necessarily cover him. The only time we ever get to see Max is the last lap.
Yeah. I know, and sometimes they cut to him, and it's like there's a battle happening on track, and we don't even want to see it.
Yeah, I'm curious on how that is. Now, look, his team is winning. There's millions of Red Bull fans all around the world.
Everywhere.
We meet ones here in the United States daily. So,
Red Bull cans everywhere, all across the nation, have literally infiltrated to, Formula One.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't think, at the end of the day, they're winning championships. They're winning the most consecutive races. Max has the most race wins, keeps breaking the record week after week. We're now up to 17.
So maybe they don't need the television coverage for the sponsors,
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't. So, but it was a bummer to see Charles Leclerc, after having really good qualifying the last 3 races. He was on the podium in Mexico. And, I think Ferrari looked okay this weekend. Carlos was having some issues right from the get-go.
He had clutch issues. And then he wasn't able to downshift after.
Wasn't able to downshift, but coasted in and was able to not cause a safety car or red flag at the end, which, it is what it is. But yeah, Ferrari, I think they're taking their car and they're throwing it in the bin too this weekend.
Yeah.
And then we saw both Ferrari-powered cars and Alfa Romeo both retired today. So
yeah, a lot of retirements. 6 cars total.
Oh my God, I know. Could have been worse if we didn't have the red flag too.
Could have been worse if we didn't have the red flag. And honestly, I thought maybe Logan Sargent was going to have a chance to get some points. He finished 11th, so just outside the points. But any opportunity, because he stayed clean, and he even talked about it in the post race. He backed out a little bit because he saw the carnage was right in front of him. Mm-hmm. So he was able to slow down, get around, and made a race out of it. So
yeah. Well, he lucked out because we obviously saw Oscar and Daniel get impacted by tires and debris. Well, Oscar got rear-ended by one of the Haas's. I know that.
Yeah, and then the random.
And then the tire hit Daniel. He tried to get out of the way. So their cars. Kudos to their teams for fixing their stuff that quickly.
They also said Oscar's car wasn't fully fixed. They were only able to get it just enough to get it out. And that's kind of what we saw him. He was in the back of the race the whole time. They both were able to catch up a little bit, but they didn't,
They were, but it's they messed up they were down 1 lap immediately from the get-go. Yeah. And it's
I wonder if they would have been able to just stay out for that safety car lap, 1 more lap.
Well, I just thought, I thought it was weird because they went out for the formation lap. And then I thought they were going to line up last, 16th and 17th, because that's what they said. Oh, they're going to get to line up. They were saying it, they were broadcasting it, whatever. And then they went back to the pit lane and did a pit lane start. And so it was like, I don't know what the hell happened. And then it's all of a sudden like, oh, they're down a lap. So, I mean, lucky for Mercedes, because I think Oscar probably would have overtaken Mercedes too.
Probably.
I mean, not to mention Daniel looked pretty good, you know, like pace-wise. I mean, Yuki looked great yesterday.
Yeah. They were in top 10.
Yeah, this was the first weekend that AlphaTauri both scored points in the sprint race. Yep. So AlphaTauri's like, I think they got last year's Red Bull car, and they're like ready to go.
Yeah, I think they got a little bit of an upgrade, even though they probably, you know, and it should be a copy of the Red Bull car almost. It's their sister team. They have Red Bull drivers in there, you know what I mean? So we'll see. What else do we need to talk about for this race?
I mean, the only other thing that I want to mention, and maybe it's just because I'm on a Lando kick this weekend. I really am. But it's like every weekend, I feel like I have to hear about, oh, we had the pace to be on pole. Mm-hmm. And then he puts it on pole. And he's like, that was the worst lap I've ever done in my life. I don't know why I feel so bad, but feel good. And it's like, can't you just be excited? Can't you just be happy, please? Why is everything so pessimistic?
Yeah, I don't know, because I think he just always wants to do better, and that's how all those guys are. I don't know.
Martin Brundle, to put it to him, he was like, listen, we appreciate you, you know, your candor and how you want to be tough on yourself, but you got to give yourself some credit. So yeah. I think until he wins, I guess, he's going to be feeling that way.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But what I need Lando to do, and if you're listening, Lando, I'm just kidding. But what we need Lando to do is he has to defend against Max, and he has to beat Max in order to win races. So, I mean, I think the McLaren's looking good. I think they're moving in the right direction. It's exciting for next year to see how they're going to come out of the gates. Yeah. Look at the progress that they've made this year. But besties are going to have to clash a little. So
if he wants to take that top spot.
Yeah.
Because right now, Max is reigning supreme.
And I'm ready to see some bestie battles. I mean, we haven't seen it since, what, Nico and Lewis? And we all know how that turned out. So get them on the same team.
You're right about that. So I feel like Brazil, because I was like you. I was anticipating a miracle maybe. I don't know.
We were all so hopeful. Like, ooh, it's going to be a Mercedes masterclass.
Because they had been looking good, speeding up, being maybe the true second car team. But yeah, blown back, put away.
Yeah, Toto Wolff says the W14 does not deserve to win.
Yeah, he felt bad they give him that car this weekend. So yeah, I was a little disappointed in that whole aspect, and I think that's kind of why I was on the lull of it, because I wanted to see something other than Max win, and you know, the best we get now is the battle for third place. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
But the battle for third was pretty good.
It was, you know, but like it's the second shortest track, time wise or lap time wise, during the year. So I mean, it's hard to make a whole lot of moves. There is a lot of slow turns in the middle section, so it offers the things, and usually Lewis does really well here. It's his
second home race.
He's an honorary Brazilian. You know what I mean? So it's like...
I think that's why he fought through this race, was like, I have to do it for Brazil, for all the people that showed up for him, like the support that he gets, because at one point, it was kind of funny, honestly, and I'm like, he gets a radio message that's like, okay, we can go ahead and, you know, use these tires. And he's like, I've been using these tires. What do you mean?
For 5 laps.
You know? And so it's just... At least he can laugh. At least he can smile, you know, knowing he's like, I'm here. He's been out for redemption the last 2 years, and just not having the machinery to be able to do it. It's got to be really frustrating. Yeah.
So, you're right. So yeah, I think they all need a break. They're all got a week off before Vegas. I bet nobody leaves the Americas. I bet they all probably fly up to the United States and stay here.
Yeah, I would expect Max will probably stay in Brazil. That's where, you know, his girlfriend's family is from.
True.
And I would expect Checo to go back to Mexico, you know. But I would expect the rest of them, you know, they've got, I'm sure, places in LA, you know, places they can rent. Valtteri's going to go cycling, I'm sure, somewhere. He's going to compete in something else.
Yeah.
Daniel Ricciardo's going to be somewhere. They all got their own businesses that they need to, attend to, socialize.
You're right. So, so then they're going to be in Vegas. And all the news on Vegas has been a whirlwind. People that live there locally that don't know anything about F1.
Let's talk about Vegas.
Are angry, are frustrated. Some people think it's happening for 10 years. Even though the race is happening for 10 years, but only for one weekend every year. People are very confused on what's going on. There has been covering of some of the bridges. They're trying to cover it with, so you can't really see very well.
They're putting up graphics right now. You best believe they're going to cover it even more for race weekend.
For sure.
So get prepared for that. And it's not just so that you can't see the scenery, which is what I keep seeing is, we can't even see the scenery when we're going to Vegas. No, it's like literally for your safety. Also, it's a street track. They do this everywhere, all over the world. You have the capability, and I'm like, speaking as an American who likes F1, I didn't know everything at one point too, but was able to figure it out. And so it has been hilarious to be on TikTok or on social media and seeing the comments. I think the greatest one was what you said. There was one person that said, I thought this was just one weekend. I go on Google and it says that it's going to be happening for 10 whole years. And it's like, yeah, they're going to be racing for 10 years straight, literally. And then how much is F1 actually worth? Because they better be bringing a lot to this community.
Well, I mean, look, Vegas is known for their parties. They're going to, throw the Super Bowl in a couple months.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to deal with all that too. This is the first year Formula One has done this in Vegas. They've been to Vegas before years and years ago, but they only really raced in a parking lot. This is around the whole entire city on the strip. They built a compound, or they built a paddock on
it's like the biggest paddock ever.
And it's a piece of property. It's going to live there year round, and it's going to be part of Vegas. And I think the first year is always going to be a little difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, has been a little bit of a mess. Like, I will agree. There's definitely been some things that clearly they're rushing to finish it in some of the cases.
Absolutely.
And, obviously it is definitely interfering with day-to-day life and businesses and all sorts of stuff there. I get that. I feel it. Everyone in America is comparing it to how they did the NASCAR track through Chicago, and it didn't really bring too much. F1 is a totally different breed.
There's going to be lots of things. Look, you've already seen people are going to be having after parties.
It is money. When I think about when you're comparing F1 to NASCAR, Formula One is like the bougie racing, which means we're bringing in gazillionaires and millionaires. I mean, we're watching something on the airports, and you can't even fly into the 3 closest airports because they're booked out.
So, all right. So I watch a lot of aviation stuff because I enjoy that stuff. And there are 3 different airports. There's the international airport. There's a private business airport. And then there's like a smaller commuter airport. All of those places are charging a minimum of $3,000 just to land there. And you have to have pre-reservations to even get approval to land and or store your plane there. And from everything I've been seeing, all 3 places fully booked. Your next best place is like Carson City, which is an hour outside, or like Reno, which I believe is 2 hours north. And so lots of big money. Everyone that can afford to fly private that does that kind of stuff is flying private to Vegas. They're landing in Vegas. And if you didn't have this pre-planned, if you're not planning ahead, you're not going to Vegas. Now, someone like us, we could go hop on a commercial flight, land in Vegas, and get a hotel probably for pretty cheap because not everything is selling out.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, if you're still debating on whether or not you want to go and you're in America or anywhere, the cost, you could stay on the strip and it's still there's some hotels less than $200.
There are.
So it's feasible, but it's going to be a big deal. Is there going to be things that obviously they need to improve on going into the next few years? Absolutely. But it is going to bring revenue to the city. And as Formula One continues to grow, there's still people we talk to daily that don't even know what Formula One is, or, is that the cars that drive around in circles? No. Yeah. So it's still growing. So it's going to get more affordable. There's 3 races here. So we'll see what happens. The only other thing I wanted to talk about with Vegas is that, like, I have a bone to pick with the times. I'm like, you know, we live in America and it is unrealistic, the timing. So we're in Eastern time, so we're 3 hours ahead. So first of all, it's late for us, but it's late for the drivers. Like, qualifying is on at midnight. Qualifying is on at midnight for them they go out and qualifying starts. So that means, bearing that there's no red flags or issues, which there probably will be because it's a new track and a street circuit, they're going to be going into 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, leaving the track.
Yeah.
To come back the next day to race at 10 p.m. Not to mention all the other, I'm sure, BS, you know, media responsibilities that they're going to have to do because it's Vegas, baby.
Yeah. So I've heard 2 reasons why they're doing it. One is for the European audience to have appropriate time for them to watch it in the mornings. And then I heard the reason number 2 is that it's Vegas. Vegas doesn't sleep. Everything that happens in Vegas, all the prime stuff happens at night. Mm-hmm. You know, and I guess there's some truth to that. But I think if that's the truth and that's the case, it still should be around prime time.
But I feel
so around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. You know, I
think I agree with the race time. So they start at 10 p.m. for the race. Now I think, especially when I think, oh, it's Vegas, baby, blah blah blah. The people, and I could just be saying this, but the people that are going with big money, they're just probably going to go to the race and for the experience or whatever. Maybe they'll be in the paddock the day before. They're not going to be watching quali at midnight. They're going to be out at the clubs by then. They're going to be doing their thing. They're going to be partying, whatever. Yeah. I just think it's unfair to the drivers, the fact that they're, you know, been adjusted to the American, you know, times because they've been obviously in the Americas for the last several weeks. They're all pretty much going to stay here. And they're having to race qualifying at midnight. Like, and in the words of Max, they're definitely going to Vegas more for the show than for the racing.
Yeah, it's all about the show. I guess we'll see how it pans out. Hopefully it's an enjoyable race, but we'll find out. It's a lot of straight lines.
It is. It's an upside-down pig.
It is an upside-down pig.
So, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. It's a new track. I can't wait to see what Vegas has. They're going to have their opening ceremony on Wednesday. It's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, it'll be cool.
I'm excited. It'll be a great show.
Yeah. So, I guess that's all. Next thing we get to look forward to. I don't have much more to say. I know who your driver of the day was. It was either Fernando or Sergio, one or the other.
Yes.
We know how you felt about the weekend. I think we want to know how you guys feel, and if you made it this far, God bless you. Thank you. It's been almost an hour, and we appreciate it. We enjoy talking Formula One. Sometimes we talk for an hour about it, and it's only been a weekend. So thank you for listening. We'll see you guys after Vegas. Enjoy Vegas, and enjoy a week off.
In 2 weeks. We have 1 week off from listening to the Dutch national anthem before we come back and we get to listen to it again. So we'll see you then.
All right, that's it for us. Bye.
Bye.